Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks. Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Continuing Education, Bachelor's Degree Program, Elective Course, Gender Studies, BGSE-001 Gender Sensitization, Society, Culture and Change, Block 6 Gender Representation and Media, Unit 19 Reading and Visualizing Gender. 19.1 Introduction. In Unit 17, we examined the relation between gender and language and discussed how the two are mutually dependent. We also focused on the different modes to know how men and women communicate effectively when most of their ways of communication are directly opposite. This led us to discuss various social and cultural factors that influence language. Unit 17 has equipped us to understand the difference between male language and female language and think of the possibility of gender-neutral language. In the present unit, we shall see how to give a gendered reading to literature and other life situations to visualize gender. 19.2 Objectives. After reading this unit, you will be able to times explain concepts of close reading, visualizing, and representation. Times give gender-specific readings so as to examine how cultural factors are linked to emotional expressions and also to our understanding. Times explain how and where men and women writers differ in their choice of words, what images are formed and how we, as readers or viewers, interpret them, and times discern the hidden meaning of a text, be it a literary text or a media report or TV show or ad. Concomitantly, we shall be equipped to understand the gendered use of language. 19.3 Understanding the terms. We have three terms that need to be elaborated and understood for the present discussion: reading, visualizing, and representation. Let us read about each of these in detail. 19th March 2001 words and their connotation and denotation. Before we look into the meaning of reading, let us clarify that every word has connotation and denotation. Denotation is a word's primary or literal meaning, such as a dictionary defines. Connotation is its secondary or accompanying meaning that the word implies or suggests. For example, home is a place where we live, but home also suggests coziness, love and affection, privacy. Thus, the phrasal expression at home denotes to be inside the home, but it connotes being comfortable and at ease. While reading a text or a picture, we can give a superficial reading or we can delve deeper to find the suggested meaning. Connotation is usually influenced by social and cultural realities. We take following two lines from an Indian school textbook. 1. Ram, go to school. 2. Radha, clean the room. The superficial meaning is simple. The two children are being assigned work according to the accepted gender norms. But the implied meaning is different. Ram is a boy. He is supposed to go to school. Radha is a girl who is denied this privilege and she has to clean the room. These two simple lines have deeper gender implications, and also the language is sexist. It discriminates and devalues a girl. It centers on gender roles. Gender role is a set of norms or culturally defined expectations that define how girls and boys, man, woman, are supposed to behave. 19th March 2002 Close reading. Reading is a multivalent word. It does not only mean reading a given line or text or message. It connotes what is hidden behind the obvious. Every word is invested with meaning. Every sentence can be interpreted in various forms as per the suggested meaning. Thus, literal description becomes a tool that helps us to see a situation and leads us through the multiple meaning of the language. For example, a male character in a story or play or novel calls a woman babe. Babe is a diminutive word. A baby or babe is small, helpless, and dependent. There is no doubt that this is a term of endearment, but it reduces a woman to a non-entity. It displays the authority of the man, and in its ultimate analysis, it speaks of male domination. Till recently, women did not object to this appellation because it was considered a flattering personal compliment. But when feminism made women aware of the effect of language and the power play, women realized that this is not a compliment to their sex. They found it offensive and took objection to it. Likewise, words like queen, princess, honey, kitten, and doll are insulting, and women have started rejecting these as they are sex privatization stereotype. These appellations have superficial attributes, and they encourage men to see women as helpless and dependent. The side effect is, if women are described only by such superficial attributes, conversely, men appear more individual and strong on whom women depend. 19th March 2003 False individuality. In this process of gender attribution, women acquire false individuality. This individuality hinders the development of the real personality. What do we mean by false individuality? To explain this, we ask you a question. What are the attributes of a doll? It is dumb, it is a plaything, and it has no personality and no intelligence. All dolls are alike, and they do not have individuality. Conversely, it means women are lookalike, they are dumb, they have no opinion, and they are playthings. This is its implied meaning. Socially, women are expected to express their individuality through their physical appearance or beauty or through carrying out gendered roles. They are thus stereotyped as a class, they look alike, they think alike, and they are beautiful but have no brains. Such sociocultural parameters keep sex oppression going on. The image becomes extension of oneself. It gets hard to distinguish the real person from his latest image. Men see women not only as an image, but as an image of sex appeal. Look at some of the fairy tales. The story of Cinderella, for example. We all have liked it since childhood, but read it closely, and you will realize that Cinderella is beautiful, but she is helpless. She has sex appeal, but she is almost doll-like. And she needs a prince to rescue her. Through fairy tales such as these, we are still taught that we are princesses. Someday our prince will come. We will be picked up, carried off to a palace to live happily ever after. 19th March 2004 What is visualizing? The dictionary meaning of to visualize is to form a picture of something or someone in our mind. This is a mental image. Visualization is a problematic word and difficult to define. The purpose of visualization is to connect what we have imagined or what picture we have formed of it. It is based on idea formation and is abstract. The image is not visible. When we visualize, we transform the image from invisible to the visible. Visualization has to produce an image, but this image, as you see it, may not be so clear to the other. The most important criteria is that visualization must provide a way to learn something about the given idea or language. Visualization helps us to recreate a mental picture. How it works with gender can be understood with following example. How would you visualize a girl or a woman? Probably, you will make a stereotypical mental image: weak, submissive, emotional, quiet, engaged in household work, nurturing children, not much educated. How would you visualize a boy or a man? The stereotypical picture is aggressive, assertive, dominating, loud, messy, scientific mind, outdoor life, interested in games and sports. These mental images are socio-cultural and may be different in different cultures. In many textbook images or magazine pictures, we still find the father sitting comfortably and reading a newspaper, while the mother slogging in the kitchen. Here we can visualize that boys and men are presented as universal figures in which women girls are invisibly included. The image of the mother is reduced to a performer of household chores. Obviously, she does not have an individual personality and thus shown to have no choice. This type of approach encodes women's fear of public spaces and men's incompetence in household work. Further, this has implications for division of labor, childcare, and household work is for women, public life is for men. To explain what we said just now, we give you below two pictures. Look at them and visualize the scene and interpret it with the tool of gender. Fig. 19.1 In boys are doing all outdoor work, imitating their father. Gender roles are all masculine. Here Fig. 19.2 Girls are playing at household chores and imitating their mothers. Gender roles are clearly feminine. Researchers have observed that stereotypical conceptions of girls and boys occur even in schools. Usually, teachers also have patronizing attitudes toward girl students. They give more space to boys. The girls' performance in science subjects are not as highly valued as the boys, and this outlook can ultimately have consequences for girls' attitudes towards science. Take up the following exercise before read further. Check your progress. 1. What attributes would come to your mind while visualizing mother? 2. What is gender stereotyping? Give two examples, one male, one female stereotype. 3. Write a note on close reading, 50 words. 4. Fill in the blanks. I. Girls imitate their mothers, fathers, teachers. 2. Boys like activities, indoor, homely, outdoor. 3. Boys' gender roles are masculine, boyish. 4. False individuality hinders a girl's development of personality, real feminine brain. 19th March 2005 Reading Silence. Women's silence has been the subject of much debate. Silences mean those statements that are in the background, that are not expressed. Some critics say that women are capable of speaking out, yet they do not speak out. That means they have no voice. About Indian women, many critics argue that the public voice of the Indian woman has long been stifled by the male-dominated society. She has been led to believe in her self-image as a sober, silent, docile being. Her silence on the problems she faces is connected to this self-image. Women need encouragement to shake off this imposed reserve and speak of her problems and their solutions. Women writers today are speaking up. They are even exposing rape cases and the aftermath of such exploitation. Let us examine these lines from two poems. 1. Sita, speak your side of the story, we know the other too well. Sita, speak. This poem by Bina Agrawal exhorts Sita to speak out. Sita has been silent, but now she must speak out, and we must know her side of the story, which is a story of oppression. 2. You welcomed me with a smile on your lips, and a frame in your hands. I was to fit into that like a circus animal. This poem, entitled Ring Master, is by J. Bhagyalakshmi. The poet resents the social stereotype. Frame and fitting into the frame means fitting into the gender role. 19.4 Why women's language? It is usually observed that women use different language for their literary works than men do. By using their own language, women challenge the male repression of the feminine and attack the dominant ideology. Women's writing has often been ridiculed as without substance. Critics and readers have ignored women or acknowledged them as inferior. But in women's writing we can discern sisterhood and women's ability to empathize, which is absent in men's writing. We need the term women are writing if only to remind us of the social conditioning and conditions under which women wrote and are still writing. That women are viewed as being incessant gossips or chatterers distract from the fact that in the world of the written world they are silenced, censored, persecuted, and marginalized when they seek to go beyond the topics allocated to them as good women. Feminist criticism questions the accepted conceptual structures. It wants to decode and demystify all the disguised questions and answers that have always shadowed the connections between genre and gender. Language is not a carrier of ideas, but it is a saper of ideas. It is a means of self expression and is correlated with sociocultural facts of one's upbringing, environment, class, and nationality. This is called language socialization, which means people learn how they are expected to behave socially. Women as a category employ language differently from the way men do, and hence women's language is believed to display their female identity. An example from literature can illustrate how language creates and sustains gender. The dialogue below is from Shashi Deshpande's novel The Dark Holds No Terrors. A mother is addressing her 7-year-old daughter. The words are simple, but when you visualize gender role, you find their real implications. Times mother, don't go out in the sun. You'll get even darker. Times Saru, daughter who cares. Times M, we have to care if you don't. We have to get you married. Times S, I don't want to get married. Times M, you can't live forever with us. Times S, why not? Times M, you can't. Times S, and Dhruva, her brother. Times M, he's different. He's a boy. Read this carefully and evaluate these words and see how harmful they are for the little girl's psyche. This brief conversation highlights the following issues. Gender role, marriage is a woman's final destiny for which she is prepared from her childhood. She has to be fair-skinned. This is society's definition of the masculine feminine. Gender stereotype, Saru cannot live with her parents. Dhruva can because he is a boy. Gender stratification, Saru is ranked at a lower level vis-a-vis her brother. Gender ideology, mother's ideas and values legitimize sex role for her daughter. She has to be pretty, fair, married. Femininity comes to signify a role, an image, a value imposed on women by the logic of the masculine systems. With the advancement of women's educational standards and gender consciousness, women have recently started to speak out. They have shed their inhibitions and they talk about their experiences of gender discrimination in their everyday lives. This is how they represent their side of the issue. 19.5 What is representation? Now that we have explored the areas of language, gender, visualization, and the need for close reading, we shall examine representation. The simple dictionary meaning of representation is the act of representing, presenting again, something that represents as an image or a symbol, like a verbal picture. For example, the portrayal of women in films or newspapers can be stated as representation of women in films, newspapers. Other synonyms for representation are portrayal, depiction, rendition, characterization, and so on. Representation also means an act of speaking or acting on behalf of someone. Representation covers the fields of literature, gender studies, politics, sociology, cultural studies, and many other disciplines. But we shall restrict ourselves to the relationship between gender and representation. 19th May 2001 Representation of women in media and literature. Imagination plays a significant role in representation. In literature, it helps in engendering and re-engendering women. In films and TV serials and advertisements, women's representation is visual. Nowadays, television has centrality to our daily lives, in fact, to our culture. It is like the language we speak, it is simple yet complex and difficult to understand and analyze. The representation of women in the media is varied. Sometimes it is according to cultural norms, sometimes as per the new ideas, and sometimes it breaks all norms. The mother, for example, is represented as a patient, all-loving presence, but she can be very strong despite her several problems. We know how the woman is represented in art and sculpture. All these representations are gendered and need to be understood from a gender perspective. Representation asks the question, who is speaking, on behalf of whom? When we look through gender learn, one of the important aspects of representation is to enable women to represent themselves. There was a time when women were represented by men because women were not allowed to speak or write. Now, with sociocultural changes, they have seized the opportunity to represent their case, their problems, and their viewpoints. 19th May 2002 Representation as Social Reality. Representations are based on social realities. Therefore, they are social constructs. They can only change when the overall picture changes. Ask yourself a question. How are women portrayed in Hindi cinema today? How were women presented in the films of 1940s and 1950s? We can also note the difference in women's portrayal of women and men's portrayal of women. 19th May 2003 Self and Other. When there is self, there is the other. In literature, women have been treated as objects rather than as subjects. As object, one loses one's individuality. One becomes the other. Men are often portrayed as powerful and in control of things. Man is the subject, the decision maker. Woman has a secondary position. In the patriarchal system, man is in a speaking position, so he is the self. All those about whom or for whom he speaks are the other. The speaker has the active role and an element of control. Women are deprived of this central active role and are therefore muted. 19.6 The right to represent. Women have been striving to represent themselves. In the contemporary context, women are writing about what they feel and how they feel. They are giving their own account of their experience, thus allowing previously silent voices to be heard, and also to make patriarchal structures aware of their joys and sorrows, problems and strengths. The issue of representation is a significant one for research as well as for political activity. Representation voice is an important factor for access to power. Just a few lines from a short story can illustrate how women express themselves frankly. For the past 2 days, Khatija was living in unbearable pain. Even now, there were no sign of her giving birth to a baby. She tried to keep the pain to herself as much as possible. At times, she felt like screaming, but she was dreaded by the thought that others might hear it. The Birth by Sarah Abu Bakr. This is a typical female experience, and only a woman can give expression to it. Analyzing literature, media, and other fields to examine women's representation by both men and women is important to ensure in future a balanced picture of power relations. 19.7 How women represent themselves. Social tradition has all along looked at women as weak, submissive, and dependent. The written word asks the question, how do others see us, read us, or interpret us? When men present women's picture, they look at them from their own angle. But women want to pen down their own perceptions and realities that have relevance to their lives. Women may represent themselves as a group or as individuals in written or oral texts. They may also be represented by others. Representation has a political connotation also. When women struggle to get representation in political field, they are struggling for the right to represent and be represented. In sociology, Representation allows them to express their views of their social situations. In literature, it stands for their own writings in which they can express their innermost feelings and experiences. For example, women writers from the Dalit sections of the society know the pain of double marginalization and double victimization. In their writings, these women depict first-hand knowledge of their problem. Men writers writing about such situations can offer a view from the outside. Women want to represent themselves to avoid being misrepresented. 19.8 The problem of misrepresentation. Closely allied to representation is the problem of misrepresentation. How is one misrepresented? Systems are always partial and always subject to interpretation. In the process, there is likelihood of misrepresentation and misinterpretation. To be dismissive of women and their problem is misrepresentation. Likewise, to portray them frivolously or to see their problems as non-issues, to deride their emotions and sentiments or behavioral pattern all come under misrepresentation. Writing must expose the real experiences of real women. If we get these from women's own perspective, chances of misrepresentation become less. Women's experiences are different from men's, but difference does not mean inequality, and therefore should not signify unequal relationships. A correct representation of gender will help restructure sociocultural perception of women. Let us take a small example of misrepresentation. In the Indian social tradition, we call a woman Devi. As a goddess, she is to be held in high esteem and kept on a pedestal, but the social reality is different. She is a real woman with real problems, who experiences human pains and pleasures. It is necessary to explore how women define themselves and are defined as women within various systems of representation. Women have their own unique identity. If we enable them to define themselves, we shall give them their unique identity, which is important for their individuality. 19. 9 Challenges to victimization. Women are burdened by the notions of femininity, of respectability, of honor because these shape the crucial questions of their sexuality. In literature, language plays an important role challenging the stereotypes. Women writers are challenging the victimization of women characters and seeking new balance of power between the sexes. Women writers wish men to understand that women are not commodities to be possessed. This is a kind of revolt against social norms that breed inequality. In the film Fire, 1996, for example, Deepa Mehta uses feminism in a manner that does not fit into the normal socially accepted discourses. Representation in the cinema requires both language and visual depiction. Other disciplines like literature and social sciences depend on language to delineate reality. 19.10 Summing UP. In this unit we have focused on language and gender from several angles. The ability to use language, whether oral or written, is one of the most important characteristics of human beings. In analyzing language we go beyond the boundaries of grammatical analysis of a text. We are aware of grammar, but we see functions within the language as it is spoken or written, and also how words, language, function within the context. Focus is also on the social action of the language of the users communicating in a particular social and cultural context. We know by now that language is a tool. Not only that, it is a powerful and essential tool which people use to express, control, and also alter existing power relations. 19.11 Keywords. Gender attribution. Gender attribution is a process. In this process, society ascribes or assigns a sex or gender onto an individual with or without knowing concretely what sex that person is or what gender they identify as. 19.13 Unit N Questions. 1. Write a note on the term's connotation and denotation. 2. Define representation. How do women represent themselves? 3. What are the terms of endearment that women resent? And why? 4. Fill in the blanks. I. Reading silence means. Read silently, understand hidden meaning. 2. When one is portrayed as an object, one becomes the subject. The other. 3. The connotation of the appellation doll is a cute woman, a sweet woman, a dependent and helpless woman. 4. To deny women's authentic experiences and belittle them can be called representation, interpretation, misrepresentation. We plays a significant role in representation, words, images, imagination. 5. Explain visualization and its importance for studying gender.
Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with the next chapter.